Hi and welcome back to the next part on Azure, on building your infrastructure the easy way. And let me switch directly to the screen. In the previous videos we created the VNet, we created subnets, created network security groups, we attached them to the subnets, we deployed a storage account, and now in our fantastic design we're going to deploy the Keyvault. So let's get started. And here we have Keyvault and it's empty still. So let's create a file here. Keyvault.bicep. And let's start writing a new Keyvault. Let's start by sizing up the screen a little bit. Like this. And we'll hide the left pane. Even make it bigger still, like this. So let's start writing our resource Keyvault. We need to provide a name, so I call it for now I think we used this naming convention already. Keyvault. Or one, perhaps I want to create another one. You can do here the same again, resource group.location. I already showed you some tricks, right, to add that to a parameter. So we take a param, location, type string equals that. What we can then do is here, location. Okay? Properties, scoop, family. Full space A, name, standard tenant ID. So we need to provide it again. And let's go to my tenant inside of Azure. And let's go to home, Azure Active Directory. And then you have a tenant ID here. So you need to provide that. Let's do that. Let's provide the tenant ID here. Let's do it properly at the start this time. Param tenant ID type string I said equals that. Okay, or you can then use the tenant ID there. So let's see, according to Bicep, this is all we need to spin up a new Keyvault. So let's see if that's the case. Start small, and I'm also planning to add some secrets to the Keyvault as well, but let's start with a simple example. Let's see if we have something in the history already. I'm quite lazy, yes. Template file will be keyvault.bicep. Let's see if we deploy this to our dev resource group. I'll show you the content of that currently. We have a VNet and stuff, but we don't have any Keyvault, right? I refresh, don't have any Keyvault. Let's run this command and see if we get the Keyvault. At least the template is valid, so that's a start. But it seemed to have failed still. So the parameter access policies is not specified. So apparently we need to specify more. And so I think inside of the properties we should have an access policies, and we have that. Let's see what we can do with that, because I don't know out of my head either. So let's take perhaps required properties. Okay, so you provide an object ID, a tenant ID. No, we already have the tenant, so we know that. Permissions, let's see what we have. So let's set on some secrets, set some permissions there, and I set all the permissions, okay? Or do a get, and perhaps a list, okay? And perhaps one more. That will be set, okay? I can set a secret, I can list a secret, and I can get a secret, okay? Or this object ID that we're going to specify is able to do that. And let's go to my Azure Active Directory again. See users. I don't have many users, I only have myself, so yeah. And every user has an object ID, as you can see here. We take that object ID. We go back to our Keyvault and we call it, we give it a parameter again, and we parent object ID is type string equals that. To provide some quotes around it, of course. And then here we can use the object ID. Object ID. Okay, so I think, not sure, that we solved this error, right? Because we did not provide the access policies, was not specified. Now we specified it, so let's see. Clear the screen and we run the command again if we get the key fault. Let's check in Azure as well here. At the same time, development, we still don't have a key fault here. At least the deployment is running again. We have some results back here and the result is succeeded. So now we should have a key fault here. And we have, as you can see here, if you open the key vault, you should have some access policies as well, right? Because we configured them. Access policy, and that's me. And I can, on the secret permissions, I only have 3 selected. So let's add some permission for the keys and certificates as well for my account, right? So I'm able to access that properly. And then we add some secrets here as well to the vault itself. And I think that should be sufficient for the, and perhaps we add some networking. We enable the firewall as well and specify some specific IP addresses that can access the key vault. Okay. So let's first go to the access policies that we have here, and we're going to change the key permissions and the certificate permissions. And how do we do that? We go back to our Bicep file. Basically, inside of permissions, we already have an access policy, right? And I think we can then add another one. So we can do a new one here. And we do the required properties again. Then we have an object ID again. We already know that, that's me. And we have a tenant ID. We already found that out. Tenant ID and permissions. This time, we set the permissions on the certificates. Okay. And what are we going to set on the certificates? This time I do all permissions. Okay, I'm a little bit lazy. So that was the certificate part. And now we add another one. So required properties, object ID, tenant ID, permissions. What did I say? On keys, right? Keys. And I do create keys, delete keys, and get keys. Okay, fair enough. So now I changed the permissions. I added some permissions. Specifically for certificates and keys. Okay. Let's run the deployment again. Let's run the deployment again and see if our key vault access policy will be changed after that. So let's wait for that. It's quite quick. So let's refresh it here and see if this key permissions and certificate permissions change. And it does. As you can see here now, I can only do a get, create, recover. For instance, if you want to have the recover right, I think you understand that, right? You can just add that here, of course, all these rights, right? Recover. If you want to have that, for instance, added. Let's run this again for the sake of the demo. And wait until it completes. It's done already. And if we refresh it here, now 4 selected and also recover. And you can also remove stuff, of course. I think you get the picture here of the key vault and the access policy. So let's focus on the next part. And I think that's adding a secret to the key vault. So let's see. So create a new resource. Oh, I honestly did not meant to do that. Resource. We call it the secret one. Secret one. So type secrets, I think it is, right? Yeah, secrets. Key vault secrets. And we need to add a name here, and I call it, I don't know, admin pass, right? Perhaps we're going to use that later. And we have some properties as well, but we already have some squiggling lines here, right? Don't know how you want to call them, but squiggly lines, I think it's called like that. And that basically means that it's asking us where to store this secret, right? This secret isn't anything on itself. It is, but it can't live without a key vault. So basically what you need to do is specify the parent and then your resource name that you provided. So here I gave it the name key vault, KV, And here I refer as a parent to that, so that this admin pass can actually be stored inside of a key vault. Let's see what are the properties. I don't know. Attributes, content type, value. Value, my secret. My secret 1. Okay. Later, perhaps we add another secret later and make it of a secure string. So you can't see the value, but you need to provide it at runtime, so to speak, as a secure string. It's a way better method than I'm doing here, of course, storing a secret and then putting it in plain text. That's just horrible. But for demo purposes, it's fine. So let's run this again and see if we get an extra or a new secret inside of our key vault. Let's run this. First, check the key vault here. Secrets, we don't have any secrets yet. Let's run this. Should take a couple of seconds, so I don't need to pause the video all the time. It's done already. If I refresh this, we now have a secret here, as you can see. We have a secret now with our value, show secret value, as you can see, my secret 1. Okay, let's advance the code a little bit now by adding a parameter. So let's see, I think we can do add secure, something like that, or is it param? Making mistakes as well. I call it pass for now. Equals, we need to have, now I want to do it dynamically. So, yeah, I don't know why they didn't pop up. Parameter pass string, right? Exactly. Pass string. Let's use that as our secret, right? So we have a secret now, and now we specify the pass there. Okay, that's a little bit better, I think. And then during runtime, we need to provide this secure parameter, and it should prompt us because we did not provide a default value for it. So let's run this again and change the secret value at runtime. So I run it again. I hope it prompts. If it doesn't prompt, we can fix that, of course. But it does prompt, you see a password. So I will mark 24. I just do that as a password. Very terrible, but not very secure either, but fine for the demo, I think. So let's wait a couple of seconds and go back to our admin pass here. We refresh that now. And as you can see, we have an older version and we have a current version. And now go to the current version. You'll see that it's marked 24. And the older version is still pointing, of course, to my secret. And that was the insecure way. But now we provided the secure password. Of course, if you want to provide this at the runtime, and you can also do this minus pass and then provide your password. But you see, this is not very secure. Basically, what you can do is wrap a PowerShell script around it, convert your string to a secure string, and pass that string during runtime here. So minus pass, and then you pass the password in. I can make an example, by the way. Let's see if we have some time for that. But for now, you understand it, I guess. You can provide the parameter at runtime. Yeah. Let's add another secret to the vault, just for demo purposes. And we can, of course, type everything again, but I'm a little bit lazy. We can create for each loops, of course, as well. We can have 2 values, for instance, and then loop through those values, or 10 values, and then create vault secrets on that way. That's very doable. But I think for now, I'm trying to give some basic examples, basically. So and we call this admin pass 2 because the other name is already existing, or we call it secret 2 for now. And we provide here different value, plus not matter much. Okay, we run this again and see if we get the extra secret now inside of the key vault. I need to provide the password again, stupid of me. So let's change it to mark 25 this time. And let's go back to Azure, refresh, Here we have a current version again, Mark 25, so we changed that. And in development, we have the key vault here. We should also have a new secret, right? Secret 2, we have that, secret 2. And I don't know what value I provided. I think we provided the sentence. Yeah, does not matter much. Okay. Let's see. Perhaps let me create a simple example on how you provide this secure string at runtime securely as well. So let's create a keyvault.ps1 file, sort of wrapper around it, and we're going to store a secure string inside of this keyvault.ps1 file, and then run that script and feed that argument to this bicep file. Okay. So we add some params to our code, specifically we call this pass. The parameter type will be secure string. Secure string, yes. Attributes will be mandatory. We need to provide it at the runtime. And then basically what we do here is, let me see, close this, because I'm kind of lazy, as you perhaps already noticed sometimes. Yes, don't want to type this all over and over again, so let's take this as an example. And the resource group will be dev. I don't need to specify key vault name. And we're going to deploy a key vault. I think this is, so it's called differently. Key vault bicep. Let me try to size the screen one lower. And I hate the backticks, but for now, I guess need to have it on the screen. So key vault creation. Now let's see in our current folder. So we have a key vault.bicep. And what we can do now is also provide a password there, and then we provide that pass that we now provide at runtime during the script. Let's run the script. I haven't tested it yet, so I don't even know if it works, but we'll find out soon enough. I'll run it, and now I need to specify a password at the runtime for the PowerShell script, so I mark 26 this time. And now this PowerShell script calls this bicep file and provides this secure string now as well, of type of secure string here. And I think it was accepted, it was succeeded as well. So if we can now go back to our secrets and our admin pass, we refresh that. Our admin pass is a new version again, Mark 26. That now came from this little wrapper that we wrote around this. So you can basically automate it. It's still the same. You still need to provide a secure string, but imagine this comes from a database. Then you can automate this, of course. I think I'm happy enough with the key. No, not really. I also promised that we enable the firewall on the key vault, so we're going to do that. And I'm really honest here that I don't know where we need to configure that. So let's see inside of properties if we have something for networking or something like that. Network ACLs. I think that should be it. Let's open that. Let's open this again. Bypass. Let's see. Bypass Azure services. Okay, I'm fine with that. Default action will be deny, of course. Otherwise, it's not the firewall, right? If you allow everything, I mean. Then IP rules and virtual network rules. I don't have any IP addresses yet in my virtual network, so I add some IP rules and specifically my own public IP address, or I pretend doing that. Okay. So then I do the required properties and then value. I think I need to provide something like, I don't know, 123.4/32, like an IP address. And perhaps that's it already. So let's run this key vault again. And I must be honest, I don't want to specify the password over and over again. So I'm gonna do a little bit, I didn't want to do that, like that. A little bit nasty, and I hard coded here again. mark 25. So otherwise I need to provide it over and over again when I run this this simple piece of code, and I don't like to do that, honestly. So that's perhaps, I see here an example on my screen that could be quite interesting indeed. Let's add another parameter I meant. So we add another parameter and we call it Keyvault name, type string. And we provide that as at runtime as well. And then we can provide here the Keyvault name. That's a little bit better than hard-coded there. So I spotted that error. Of course, we can also add the IP rules here to a higher level, you know, use your imagination. You can add parameters whatever you want. Perhaps you want to even extract them to a different level. It's all possible. But let's see when we run this now if we actually get a firewall enabled Keyvault. So let me copy the command quickly from here because I think I had it somewhere here. Yes, I have it here, and then we can specify the minus Keyvault name. Let's make sure that I specify the same name that I have in Azure now, because otherwise it will be a mess. So I specify this name now at runtime, so it's not hard-coded in the Bicep anymore. It's now in a parameter provided at runtime, and now we run this Keyvault again and see if we didn't screw up, or I didn't screw up. And also check if we get the firewall enabled. So it succeeded at least. So let's go back to the Keyvault. The secrets, we now believe that it works. I'm not focusing on that anymore. Let's go to the networking. So it's still on all networks here. So something was not set properly, I think. Let's refresh it. Perhaps that was even the case. I'm not sure. So let's refresh it and test once more. Otherwise we have an interesting one here. Network policy. Okay, see, so selected networks, it was set. I needed to refresh it. So it's set to selected networks, and only this IP address has access now to this Keyvault. And the fun part of this, I basically shut myself out of this Keyvault. And I'll show you why that is. And I think, at least, if I go to secrets now it says the firewall is turned on and your IP address is not authorized to access this Keyvault, as you can see here. And that's because I turned on the firewall, of course. And as you can imagine, this is not my IP address at home, not my public IP address. So I shut myself out, but it doesn't matter. You get the logic here, I think. You can add more IP rules. We have some secrets here. We have some networking in place. Yeah. So the next part of our fantastic design is done, and that's our Keyvault. The next step will be to set up a VPN gateway. So stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.